What's up, everybody? Welcome to an all-new free comic book day edition of the Golden Standard. We're so excited. We've got a fantastic guest here, Joe Staton, here with us. Joe, thanks for coming out.
Well, I'm glad to be here.
Thanks for coming out, and thanks for coming out for free comic book day and being a part of this episode of the Golden Standard. Joe Staton is, this guy has got a long list of work. How long have you been in the comics industry, Joe?
Well, I've been making a living at it since April of �71.
April of '71.
So what's that make? 47 years, something like that.
Yeah. So for about 47 years. So pushing 50 years. That's a long. That's an awesome career right there. He's an Eisner Award winner. He's an Inkpot Award winner. He's a Harvey Award winner, I believe, for your current run on Dick Tracy. You and Mike Curtis.
Yeah. We won 3 Harveys for Dick Tracy. So,
yeah, that's incredible. So as I mentioned before, you've got a long list of credits to your name: co-creator, writer, inker, penciler. Basically, want to get started and ask you, where did it all start for you? Did you always have a love for comics, like as a child? Were you always creative? Did you always draw? Or
oh yeah, I have always been drawing, and the funny thing is that there's a family story that I was found when I was 3 years old in the middle of the kitchen floor trying to trace Dick Tracy from the comic strips. So that was like my first awareness of art or stories or anything was Dick Tracy and Flash Gordon and the Phantom. It was newspaper strips. I knew strips before I knew comic books. So I wasn't really reading then. My father taught me to read with Superboy comics.
Oh, okay.
So, I just go back all the way.
Yeah, wow, really?
I've been reading this sort of stuff and drawing it since I could, and it's just always kind of been where I was.
Yeah. So so you literally cut your teeth on comics. Like you said, you learned how to read from comics. You were tracing on the floor. That's so awesome to think that you started out. You said you were tracing Dick Tracy comics, and now you've been working on the Dick Tracy comic strip since, was it 2011? 2011. Mike took over, and
so I've wound up where I started.
You wound up where you started. that is. That's just awesome. That is so cool to think about. Going back to where it all started. Who would you say were your influences? Who were some of your favorite characters growing up, or even now? Who were your biggest influences?
Well, when I was growing up, it was before most of the Marvel stuff. So it was. I remember really early. I was very big on Roy Rogers comics. All the Dell books. Roy Rogers, Paladin, Sergeant Preston. Love Sergeant Preston. Those were good books.
Yeah.
So I liked all the westerns. Bugs Bunny, that sort of thing. And I kind of worked from that into, I was already reading Superboy, and there was the other DC books. I wasn't really into Batman because that was kind of the weird time of Batman. He was fighting aliens and giant robot dinosaurs. But I was reading all the kid comics and and Classics Illustrated. Love Classics Illustrated.
Wow.
So I still have most of those.
Yeah.
So I've been reading comics a while.
You've done a lot of work. You've done Batman. You've done some of the stuff. You've been doing Scooby Doo. You've done some of the cartoony stuff. What do you enjoy the most? Do you enjoy the more realistic stuff or the cartoon kind of stuff?
I always have to mention that I was on Scooby-Doo for 13 years, and I have worked in 100 issues of Scooby-Doo, which I think is some kind of record.
Yeah, it's got to be Guinness book. Get on that.
So I love Scooby. I really got to liking him a lot. But I like a lot of it. I think at the basics, what I really like was the detective stuff. I like Dick Tracy. I like Mr. District Attorney.
Yeah.
And stuff like that, and I still do detective type comics when I can.
Mm-hmm.
My character E-Man has one of
Yes.
his characters is Michael Mauser, Private Eye.
Okay.
You know, his very short and unhygienic private detective.
Yeah.
And so I love doing, you know, the Mauser stories with Nick Cuddy,
Mm-hmm.
and of course I'm doing Dick Tracy with Mike Curtis, and Chris Mills and I do a character called Femme Noir.
Okay.
Who is kind of a female version of the Spirit. She's
Oh.
a blonde in
Yeah.
in a blue raincoat
Yeah.
with 245s.
Oh man.
And some of those are inked by an Argentine, Horacio Attalini, brings all kinds of atmosphere
Yeah.
and shadows. And
Yeah.
so I say I like the detective stuff the best, but I really like, as long as it's comics. You
Yeah,
know,
yeah.
I'm cool with it.
Yeah.
So it's hard to say of which one I really like the best.
You have a special place in your heart for each
Yeah.
one. Yeah. Yeah.
I remember really liking Julie Schwartz's science fiction comics, Strange Adventure,
Mm-hmm.
Mystery in Space. I was a science fiction fan, so
Oh,
so
okay.
this sort of thing I really enjoyed that. So, and some of the Julie Schwartz stuff, you know, went into when he rebooted the DC superheroes, like especially Green Lantern and Flash and like that.
Mm-hmm.
So, you know, that kind of really appealed to me.
Now, as far as your skill and your technique, did you ever have any schooling for drawing or anything, or were you just kind of a self-made man? Did you
Well, I
take any
actually
classes or?
I have like actual college degree in art.
Okay.
I
Okay.
went-
Yeah. Well.
Yeah, I went to
I
Murray.
should have done my homework a little better.
I went to Murray State in Kentucky, so you know, I was exposed to like proper art education
Yeah,
type
yeah.
things. And,
Yeah.
I don't know if it didn't take, but I still wanted to do comics.
Yeah.
So
Well, I had to take somehow. I mean,
yeah. So
Yeah.
when I got out of college, I went off to New York and was going to give it a shot.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
I guess it worked.
Hey, I think it did. I got you pretty far. Far. You were born in Kentucky?
Well, actually, I was born in North Carolina,
In
Fort,
North Carolina.
Fort Bragg.
Okay.
So,
okay.
but I mostly grew up in West Tennessee.
Okay.
And
yeah.
then I went to school in Kentucky.
Okay.
So
yeah.
I am from the Mid-South.
The Mid-South. Yeah.
That part of the world is called the
Yeah.
Mid-South.
Yeah. I was taking a look at your website and I read your little biography there, and you said you know you're from the Mid-South, and you said nobody can fool me when it comes to barbecue.
Right.
So and you know we've got some pretty good barbecue here in town. But
I want to find out about
that.
that.
You'll have to grade us on our barbecue to see how it is. Tell us about your time at Charlton Comics and the co-creation of E-Man here. This was one of the characters you co-created. Tell us about how you got, because that's where you cut your teeth, right? That's pretty much where you started out.
That is where I
Tell
started.
us tell us all about that.
Oh, well, that's my origin story there.
It's your origin story.
Yeah. Actually, I got married one day, and I got work at Charlton the next day. Was my wife then.
Yeah, yeah.
Hillary, and we were living in Brooklyn, and we decided to go over to Mystic in Connecticut, you know, for the old ships for a honeymoon. And between New York and Connecticut, there was this little comic company called Charlton, which was kind of the bottom of the barrel.
Yeah.
You know, they paid practically nothing. Their printing was horrible, but they were kind of open to people showing up.
It was your foot in the door.
Yeah. And the editor said I was the only artist who had ever showed up with his wife looking for work. So that it worked.
Yeah, so my wife can vouch for me. It's
yeah, right. So,
that's awesome.
yeah. So I still got the wife, still doing the job.
There you go. There you go.
Yeah. But we stopped. Seljan Tilly was the editor. George Wildman was his assistant editor,
Mm-hmm.
and found out it was George Wildman, who actually decided to hire me.
Mm-hmm.
George told Sal, keep this one. So,
Yeah, yeah.
so they gave me a shot.
Yeah.
And after a while, they were sending me more stuff, and I just kept on at it. I did a lot, mostly ghost stories. They were doing a lot of horror books, scary tales,
Mm-hmm.
and the many ghosts of Dr. Graves.
Okay.
After a while, they were doing haunted romances,
Yeah.
haunted love, and, I don't know, things like.
I think we have a
which-
haunted love around here somewhere.
which I thought were great
David
books.
pulled one of these out.
Yeah.
Here we go. Yeah.
Yeah, that's a Tom Sutton cover.
Yeah.
Great stuff. But they didn't pay much, but they kind of kept you working,
Yeah.
and they let you try out pretty much anything you wanted to. So,
Yeah.
you talk about what's the education. Working on these books, you can do a story really cartoony, then you could do one that really scary, and
Mhm.
you can just go through all kinds of styles, one next to the other, and try different things.
Yeah.
And you were asking about E-Man.
About E-Man, yes.
Yeah.
How did that come? How did E-Man come about?
Well, after Sal Gentili retired and went off to Florida,
Mhm.
George Wildman took over as the main editor, and he hired Nicola Cuddy, who had been one of Wally Wood's assistants. And Nick was young and had lots of ideas, and they were willing to give him a shot there.
Mhm.
And I worked with Nick a lot on the ghost stories, and we just hit it off.
Mhm.
And when Nick had a chance to come up with some of his own characters,
Mhm.
he just thought that I'd work well with him, and
Yeah.
he called one day and told me about this character E-Man,
Yeah.
and it sounded pretty good.
Yeah. Yeah.
And we had a run of E-Man. E-Man, it's kind of funny, but sometimes it's kind of heartbreaking. It's a little bit of everything. And actually the style changes a lot in that as well.
Mhm.
But E-Man is the superhero, but he's an alien energy force
Mhm.
from outer space. This isn't his normal state.
It's sort of like the form he takes.
Yeah, he's like a burst of energy,
Mhm.
and he came to Earth and was taken up by a lady named Nova Kane,
I get it.
who is I think she's an archaeology student.
Yeah.
Is it archaeology or anthropology? But I think
It was anthropology. Yeah.
yeah, she's studying things where she can study like ancient civilizations
Mhm.
and things,
Mhm.
and so, but she's working her way through college as a stripper. So it works. Of course, according to the comics, she's an exotic dancer.
Yeah.
I think she's probably the only super heroine whose civilian identity is a stripper.
Yeah. Yeah.
But I don't know.
Yeah.
But so they developed a few more characters. The detective I was talking about,
Mhm.
Michael Mauser, they had an adventure where one of the bad guys was an Australian who had a koala bear, and the koala bear just took up with them. And
Oh my gosh.
his name is Teddy Q. So the series never lasts a long time, but
Mhm.
different publishers have picked him up over
Mhm.
the years.
Oh, yeah.
And, we actually just did a new E-Man story
Yeah.
for Charlton Neo, which is a small operation. So still around. Still
Yeah.
doing it, but
Yeah. I mean, it sounds like a blast to draw. I mean,
Oh, yeah.
just from the story that you're describing to me, I mean, it must have been just. I mean, you must have had a really good time drawing the character. Discussing the ideas with the writers and whatnot. It must have been just.
yeah.
Just imagine it was a hoot in the studio. Like.
It was
Yeah.
just there were chances to do like abstract things with E-Man because he was an energy creature and he was always changing his form.
Yeah.
He could turn into anything. Nick was very much impressed by Plastic Man.
Yeah.
So that a lot of that sensibility comes into E-Man. And I think that after all this time, I think it was 73 or so we started E-Man. And I think after all this time, that's probably what I'm still best known for is E-Man.
Yeah.
So there are people of that generation around who remember E-Man.
Yeah.
That's
something
fine.
to be proud of. So you did some really cool stuff on Green Lantern. You did a couple of runs on that. You co-created the Omega Men and Kilowog, right?
And Kilowog.
And Kilowog.
And a whole bunch of Green Lanterns.
A whole bunch of Green Lanterns. You did that. You oversaw the it was the Green Lantern Corps. It was the first time we saw the Corps. Talk to us a little bit about the co-creation of Kilowog with Steve Englehart.
Well, actually, that was at a point that Steve was going to kind of reconceive the whole idea of the Green Lantern, the Corps. We had done previously that we'd done a Green Lantern Corps miniseries that Mike Barr and Len Wein had written.
Okay.
And we brought a bunch of new Green Lanterns into that. That was a 3-issue miniseries. Actually, I think that's up here.
Yeah, I think we have it up here somewhere.
Yeah.
There we go.
With Brian Bowen's first American credit. So on the cover there.
Yeah.
Yeah. So actually, this is not what I was. It's not part of the miniseries, but that's the idea.
Okay.
So we were bringing some new characters in then, and I had the run with Marv Wolfman around that time, and Marv still had, basically it was about Hal, based on Earth, and some space stuff, but it wasn't focused so much on the core. And I had gone off to be art director at First Comics for a few years, and when I came back, I was able to get back on Green Lantern, and Steve Englehart was writing it then. And Steve wanted to change the focus. We'd done the miniseries, and Steve wanted to change the focus to the regular book, to elements of the core. He was creating a lot of new characters.
So, it sounds like a very ambitious project to take on.
It was. Yeah, I mean, in retrospect, I never actually talked to Steve about where he was going with all this, but he had all kinds of ideas and was coming up with different characters. And Kilowog was just like one of many characters. That's when Salak, the sour one, actually there was one of Steve's characters that I really liked, who actually turns up occasionally, was Drick from Crick, who is kind of a zombie Green Lantern. You know, the Green Lantern ring is supposed to protect the Green Lanterns from mortal injury. So Drick's ring was apparently defective or something because he was killed. Killed in action. Drick was killed, but his ring wouldn't admit it. So Drick is kind of a zombie Green Lantern, and occasionally parts would fall off of him, but his eyes were falling out.
Oh my gosh!
So, but these were just just in passing, and I don't know. Floto was a. Oh right, there was a plant Green Lantern who died every day and came back the next day from seed. But Kilowog is the one who stood out. He was the
he's the gruff,
He had a kind of a heart of gold. He was kind of sweet on Aricia, who was like the cute teenage Green Lantern. But he's still a big, gruff, tough guy.
Yeah.
He was an interesting design.
Yeah.
Because the parts of his face kind of interlocked, and some people say he looks like a pig. I've never quite seen that.
I always thought he looked like a dog. Like maybe that's just because Kilowog sounds like dog, but I was like, it's kind of a dog thing going on there. That's all what I've always thought. But I've always loved Kilowog. I mean, like you said, he's like this big lunk, you know.
Yeah, but he's he's not just a lunk.
No. He's a hero.
He is a hero. Right. I think that was one of the things that Steve locked onto is that you have all of these characters, and they're all heroes.
Mm-hmm.
Even Guy Gardner. We completely revamped Guy Gardner to where it was like recreating a character.
Yeah.
And Guy is kind of he's brain damaged.
Yeah,
Guy is the brain damaged Green Lantern.
Yeah.
But he's still a hero.
Yeah.
You know? Guy gets things done.
I think that's a real testament to your work and to the work was that, you know, you've got working on Green Lantern, you know, not only gave you a chance to stretch out creatively because you got all these species of whatnot, but kind of what you said, to go back to what you said there, I mean, it's kind of it's inspiring because it kind of shows that it's like no matter what walk of life you come from, you can always do the right thing. You can be a hero, and I think that's big. That's big. That's really cool that you guys, you know, touch on that a little bit.
Yeah, I'm not sure I've actually nailed it down in that way before, but I think that's kind of the core of the core. That's,
yeah,
you know,
exactly. Guys, welcome back to our special free Comic Book Day edition of the Golden Standard, part 2 of our interview with the legendary Joe Staton. If you didn't watch part 1, be sure to go back and watch that. We'll post a link in the comments below so you can go back and check that out. Without further ado, enjoy! You've had such a long career. Are there any ideas, like maybe stories or anything that you were starting to work on that might have been that didn't actually come to fruition? Like, you know, I know with the release of Action 1000, we got the Jerry Siegel and Joe Shuster Superman story that was unpublished. Was there anything, you know, working on Green Lantern or any of the other books you worked on that you know almost happened, but maybe, you know, maybe the folks at DC were like, no, we're not doing that, or anything like that?
Well, there was one thing I almost worked on with Marv Wolfman. There was a company that didn't quite happen. That was going to be called, I think it was going to be called Half Moon Comics, and Denny Lubert was the editor. But Marv and I, it would have been a great TV series, but we were working on a horror series about detectives again.
Yeah.
It was about a New York detective who had relocated to New Orleans and had a Cajun sidekick, not sidekick, partner. And you're getting into all kinds of Haitian zombie things, and New Orleans has all kind of this mood, and Marv was going to really research this. And,
oh, wow.
And Horacio, our world's greatest inker, was going to ink it.
Yeah.
And, but the company collapsed before anything could happen, so we never really got anything done there.
Yeah.
So I think that's kind of as far along as a project that just disappeared. I did an adaptation, Ringworld, that never was finished. I mean, there are various things like that.
Yeah.
It seems like I kind of, most things I've managed to get done.
Oh yeah, that's very evident. You're currently working on Dick Tracy, the comic strip Dick Tracy. You've been doing that since 2011. You and Mike Curtis won Harvey Awards 3 years in a row for Dick Tracy. How did that come about? How did you start with Dick Tracy, and then how did you end up on Dick Tracy?
Well, I like I said, I have always wanted to do Dick Tracy, and every once in a while there'd be rumors around, you know, that Dick Loker was going to retire or something, and you know, the strip would be opening, and I sent samples, and never, you know, it never happened.
Yeah.
So, but my buddy Mike Curtis in Memphis, well, he's in Arkansas now, but Jackson, Tennessee, another West Tennessee
Yeah.
boy. We knew each other from shows, and mostly Memphis. And we were just talking, that I'm never going to get to do Tracy, and Mike wanted to do Tracy or something like that. So we decided, why don't we do a Tracy tribute, a website, and we were actually doing an entirely unauthorized run of just a few weeks of a Dick Tracy strip that we were putting into this site. And at that point, Dick Loker actually retired.
Perfect timing.
And we were trying to stay out of trouble, so Mike was sending things to the Tribune, letting them know we were stealing their character like that. And so we had samples.
Yeah.
And they decided we really should sue these guys. They shouldn't be doing Tracy. But why don't we hire them
Let's
instead?
just put them to work. We might
let's
as well.
just put them to work. So they had the strip had the contact information for Mike, and they called him and said, you guys really want to do the strip? And he said, well, yeah. And he called me, and I said, yeah. And so we had, how much did we have? Like a month's worth of strips, maybe a little more than that. So that was what we had done on the website. Gave us a little bit of a hit to start on the dailies. So that was what we started off with. So it's a real fluke.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I had the opportunity to go through some of the strips on the internet, and beautiful work, by the way.
Thank you.
What I find interesting about
Let me.
Go ahead.
I just wanted to put the plug in.
Yeah.
Tracy's not in a whole lot of papers anymore. Actually, there aren't a whole lot of papers anymore.
Yeah.
But if you look at gocomics.com,
That's where it was.
Right.
Yeah.
All of our entire run is up there, is archived. So
We'll put the link in the comments below so you all can definitely check that out.
Yeah.
It's beautiful. Currently, right now, Dick Tracy's crossing paths with Green Hornet.
With a Green Hornet.
I jumped off. I was like, what? Green Hornet? And that you guys did the Spirit too, right?
We did a crossover with the Spirit.
Yeah. So you've got to check out Dick Tracy and what they're doing over there. I mean, it's a fun spin on it.
Another crossover that was a lot of fun is the Tribune had canceled the Little Orphan Annie strip a few years ago.
Yeah.
And it was canceled at the point that Annie had been kidnapped by pirates. So poor Annie was just left out there, carried off by pirates.
Yeah.
So Mike decided that Dick Tracy should deal with this and should save Annie from the pirates.
Oh, that is awesome.
And there was no problem because the Trib owned both characters, so we just did that one.
Yeah.
And that was a fairly long, complicated story.
Yeah.
It went well, and Mike is always bringing in more crossovers. Anything like the Spirit or Green Hornet, he properly gets the permissions from the people who own the copyrights.
Yeah.
We stay out of trouble with this.
Yeah.
But it's amazing the things he crosses us over with.
Yeah. Maybe Scooby-Doo. Yeah, that might be that. I don't know. We can get that.
We've never done a Scooby story, but there's a big dog who is an old Dick Tracy character. Mug, I think, is his name.
Yeah.
He's a big boxer kind of dog who looks a little bit like Scooby if Scooby was a lot tougher.
Yeah.
So we actually did a story with some of the teenage characters in Tracy solving a mystery with the dog.
Oh, wow.
And at the end, the villain said, well, I would have gotten away with this if it weren't for you stupid kids and your dog. So it was our tribute.
That was your nod to Scooby-Doo.
That was our nod.
That is awesome.
To Scooby.
Something I want to talk to you about Dick Tracy, and something I've noticed about the character. I mean, such an iconic, classic character, been around since over 80 years, since 31. It seems that every artist that has worked on Dick Tracy puts their own spin on it, but he still has sort of that look, that classic look. Can you talk a little bit about how, and I'm talking about not just the yellow jacket, but like the facial features. There's like there's a look to Dick Tracy.
Oh yeah.
Can you talk a little bit about, how you came about putting your own spin on the look of Dick Tracy?
Well, supposedly when Chester Gould was starting Tracy, he wanted him to be an American version of Sherlock Holmes. Mm-hmm. So Sherlock Holmes has a distinctive profile.
Yeah.
And so Gould was following that to start with, but once you draw anything, it changes while you do it. It changes over the years. Mm-hmm. So as he was doing Tracy, the features got sharper. And sometimes he had to be more square. Sometimes not quite so square. And Tracy has changed, not changed, but varied a lot over the years. And one thing I've always done, just for doing, is working on that Tracy profile. And Gould drew him in profile more than anything else.
Yeah.
It's a challenge to draw a straight-on shot of Tracy.
Yeah.
But Gould did it sometimes, and I do it. I do like trying to figure out how to do it. But I think my version of Tracy is more chiseled, sharper than Gould's. Actually, I think the best version of Tracy's face was Fletcher's.
Okay.
Because he had more personality in that, and mine is kind of more dignified than expressive.
Yeah.
So all my other characters, I think, are pretty expressive, but Tracy himself is very, kind of rigid. But I think that's his personality too.
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
What part of your work are you the most proud of? Like, are there certain parts of your work that you look back and you have like a deep emotional connection to, or you say, I'm really proud of that. That's my baby. What would be some of those pieces of work?
Well, certainly E-Man.
Certainly E-Man, definitely.
And the Huntress. I'm still really attached to that character.
Yeah.
So I think those were probably the two main things that I'm most attached to.
What does Joe Staton do when he's not drawing, when you're not at the drawing board? What do you enjoy? Like, what do you, aside from drawing, which we know, but what do you like to do when you're not in the studio?
Well, that doesn't happen a lot.
That doesn't happen a lot.
But basically, I work around the house.
Yeah.
I love doing yard work.
Yeah.
Get out and get some air.
Yeah.
And not be sitting all the time.
There's nothing wrong with that.
I at one point I had plans for doing lots of work on the house.
Yeah. Yeah.
Have a lot of windows that need work.
Yeah.
But somehow I don't really have the time to get into all those things. So the house kind of holds itself together, and I do my yard work.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I'd say the strip probably takes up a lot of your time. Is it a little bit different than working like on a monthly title? Is it a little bit more pressure?
It is. It's always there, and I like I talked to Ramona Fraden about this at one point. She used to do Brenda Starr. We figured somehow there's a rule that if you take off the strip for a week, you're suddenly 4 weeks behind.
Yeah.
We can't figure out the math, but
wow.
But it just it gets away from you really quickly.
That's wild.
And when she was working, there was no email or So everything was, shipped in, and
Yeah.
she wanted to be, she wanted to take a vacation or things. She had to actually ship in, a couple of months worth of strips before she could be out of the studio for, a week or so.
Oh my gosh.
Something like that.
Yeah.
I mentioned the computer stuff, that if it weren't for that, we would never get this strip done now.
Yeah.
I mean, Mike Curtis, my writers in Arkansas, Shelley Plager, who's the inks the dailies, is in Oregon, and our colorist Shane is outside Detroit. The syndicate is in Chicago. The digital distributors I think they're in Texas now. Then if we weren't able to email things back and forth constantly, there'd be no way that we could keep up with this.
It'd be a challenge.
And there have been times where we've had to suddenly redo a week's worth of strips or something,
yeah.
and if it weren't for us being able to just
Instant connection.
zap everything back and forth, there's no way this could get done.
Yeah.
So I guess we hit it at a time where we could actually do it.
Get it done.
When Gould was doing it, he had a whole crew of people working at his farm in Woodstock, Illinois. So we've kind of recreated that. We're just not in the on the farm, not in the same building.
You're in like a cyber farm.
We are in a cyber farm. Yes. Oh,
and the animals in the farm are all emojis. On your farm. That's true. That's true. Joe, we want to thank you once again for taking the time to do this interview. I know you just got in. This will, as we're taping this, tomorrow is Free Comic Book Day. So we've got a huge...
Well, I hope everybody came down and had a great time.
Yes. We were going to try to get this up either on Free Comic Book Day or Monday. But we've got a big day tomorrow. Going to be a ton of people here.
Let's hope so.
Yeah. Oh, it will be.
That's the idea.
It
bring
will.
Bring people in. Buy comics. Have a good time.
This guy is awesome. You guys got to hang out with him if you ever get the chance. Become here Free Comic Day. You will. So... Joe, thank you for coming out for Comic Day. Thank you for being on this episode or webisode of the Golden Standard. Go check out gocomics.com.
Gocomics.com.
Check out his Dick Tracy run. It's beautiful. It's fun. It's Dick Tracy, and right now he's with the Green Hornet.
He is with the Green Hornet.
You can't beat it. Yeah. This has been another edition of the Golden Standard. Joe, good to talk to you.
Good to talk to you.
You guys take it easy. We'll see you. Free Comic Book Day. Bye.